Hello, peace and blessings. Thursday, February 1st, 2018. My wife and I have just finished watching Waco, The Strangers Across the Street. It's episode 2 of a 6-part series.
It's really upsetting, especially this episode where it could have stopped. The whole nonsense could have stopped and people wouldn't have died.
Yeah, they're really playing up David's taking all the women for wives for himself. The fact that they said that he was the Messiah. And I do know people down there that think David Koresh was the Messiah. But
David gave them a different definition of the word Messiah.
Regardless, I don't think I would have much theology in common with the Davidians, but I don't think the government obviously should have treated them in the way that they treated them. The other thing I would make a point of is this movie tries to paint the FBI as having some sort of internal struggle about whether they should go in and commit violence upon this group of people, and I just don't see it. I mean, they paint the FBI informant as being sympathetic to the Branch Davidians. I can't imagine a universe where there are people inside the FBI having some sort of moral conscience and ethics. I consider the FBI some of the most vile, reprobate human garbage this planet has ever produced. I'm no fan of the FBI or the ATF, and I think this movie tries to paint certain members of the ATF and the FBI as having some sort of ethical struggle with what they're doing. They don't have an ethical struggle. They, as the children were burning to death, they took trophy photos of the burning building in the background with them standing on their tanks like they had conquered some nation or something. It's sickening the way the government acted in the situation with Waco. And, the movie does try to get across, I guess, the fact that there was a lot of wrong things done by the government, but in so doing, it paints the government as trying to have some sort of moral struggle and I just don't see it. I think that the government knew what they were doing was wrong, and they didn't have a problem with it anyway.
The inside informant says, if you want to take David, you can arrest him any day. He jogs right past my house. And then the ATF press secretary says to him, well, that arresting somebody jogging won't make the papers.
Right, exactly. The whole operation by the ATF was called Operation Showtime, and they had a lady in charge of the press to make sure that it got national news that they busted some bunch of, anti-government, gun-hoarding Christian patriots so that it would be a big news story. They didn't want to arrest David jogging down the road because it wouldn't be a big news story. They needed a big news story to justify their power and their funding from Congress. And that's exactly what's going on today. The FBI is entrapping and setting up and creating terrorists so they can justify their paychecks and justify their existence and get more money from Congress to do the same thing. So,
yeah, and then the undercover agent goes in there with an illegal gun that has the trigger modified, and David looks at it and he says, don't ever bring an illegal gun or a gun in here again.
Yeah, they were constantly looking for probable cause to do a search warrant. It's the same thing that they do today with, in Schaefer's case, they found a picture on Facebook where his son was playing with ammo on the carpet, and so they try to make a big deal about that. They'll threaten your children. They'll send in Child Protective Services and claim that the children are being abused. They did the same thing at Waco. They do the same thing to Schaefer. They make situations where there are none so that it will open the door for them to come in and, basically to raid the place. We know that many times the SWAT team will even pick the wrong house. They always shoot the dog. They've even killed people and it's been the wrong house. But as far as the movie is concerned, this second episode that was titled "The Strangers Across the Street." My biggest thing that sticks with me is they just kept painting the FBI as having some moral struggle.
Also, David knew that the informant was an informant, but he felt like he could reach him and lead him to salvation, even though he knew. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I guess that's it. We'll keep doing a reaction video as each week a new series comes out. And so...
please pray for the survivors. There are some.
Yeah, there's still some survivors that lost family members down there. And
very sad. Very, very sad.
Yeah, it's a very sad situation. But I think God will hold the evildoers accountable within our government. And it's just gotten worse. I remember bringing up Waco with many of my friends in the past, and they would always talk about the Branch Davidians as if it was their fault. They couldn't understand that it was the government's fault, and the government had no business being there in the first place.
I think they'll understand now after they see this, because I think that this producer or director or writer is trying to show both sides of the story.
Yeah, and you know, if there are those probably like myself that would not agree with David's theology, his polygamy, certain aspects, and if they wanted to arrest David Koresh, as my wife said at the very beginning of this video, he jogged every morning, and they could have easily arrested this one man, but that would not have been a big news story, so that's why they had to raid the compound.
They wanted funding for the ATF. That's
right.
The bottom line. It's really evil.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Have a nice day.
Take care. God bless.